Amanda, would you call the roll, please?
Curtis.
Here.
Awful. Here. Ard.
Here.
Omenauer.
Here.
Doobie. Here. Whitlow.
Here.
Stuckey.
Here.
Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Barb? Roger, second?
Yeah, I'll say.
Okay. Your hand up. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Take a minute to look over the claims.
You got a copy? Because I messed up. They're not sending it to the right email, it's my fault. That's my, we got it straightened out. Nor am I very smart.
Okay, any questions on the claims? Well, let's have a motion to approve them first. Motion to approve the claims and send them on to county. I'll make a motion. Second? Seconded by Jed. Okay, questions on the claims?
On the elections, I know this is petty,
It's okay.
but face masks, can we just get them from our health department? How does that work?
Nope. We asked.
I know it's petty. I'm thinking, holy crap. No problem.
We contacted a lot of different places before the last election and health department didn't have anything, stores didn't have anything. Now, they're starting to come, available, so we got them while they were available.
That's fine. I was just
No, that's okay, I don't mind you asking.
Any other questions? If not, Amanda, would you call the roll, please?
Curtis.
Yes.
Oswald.
Yes.
Barr.
Yes.
Schopenhauer.
Yes.
Ruby.
Yes.
Whitlow.
Yes.
Sexton.
Yes. Are there any public comments? Seeing none, we shall move on. Okay, reports from the departments.
It wasn't last month, it might have been last month but I think it was in finance. I talked about Senate Bill 1863. So, if you guys aren't sure what I'm talking about, that's the bill that was passed that is, basically to prepare for and in response to COVID. And so amongst the, many things that are required of it, the first, step is that we have to send out an application, for a vote by mail ballot to anyone that voted in the last 3 elections. We can send them to everyone, but we're required to send them to everyone in those last 3 elections, plus anyone that's registering to vote now at this time. So we're gonna have this, and at that time when I reported and talked about it, it had just passed. I don't think when I talked about it that the governor had even signed it yet. It is signed into law now, and it, so the purpose of it is obviously to keep polling places less busy. It's to encourage voting by mail. I think that it is a very good idea. I mean, we just heard a lot, from Dee, and the presidential election is obviously the highest voter turnout election. We usually have 75 to 80% voter turnout for a presidential election. So that would make polling places busy. And in response to COVID, I think that it's probably a very good idea that a lot of people vote by mail. We can handle it, we're prepared for it, but there's a lot that has to be done. So when I talked about it before, we didn't know if there was gonna be any funding, so I thought it might blow my budget out of the water, but the good news is that there is funding. So, and Kevin, you're really gonna like one of these things that. So first of all, through the CARES Act, Iroquois County has been awarded $49,736. Now that has to be used for very specific things. Obviously it could be used for the cost of sending these vote by mail applications. We've chosen to send the vote by mail applications to all registered voters. So the grant can only be used for the percentage of voters for the last 3 elections, but there's a difference of about, I think it's like 6,000 voters or something like that. So that part will be covered from my budget. That's above and beyond the 3 elections that it's required to. Without going into anything, any politics or anything like that, I just think that it's a really good idea. I think that everybody should have, everybody has always had the right to vote by mail, but I just think that it's a good idea for this election. It's going to be a good idea. So $49,736, that will cover the additional help that we'll need because 3 election judges will be required in the office to check voter signatures. A lot of people think that voting by mail is just Wild West, free for all. Anybody can just get as many ballots as they want and fill them out, and we'll just put them in the box. And of course, that's not how it works. Everybody's that votes by mail has to sign a certification envelope, and when we get those in, they have to be checked. Those signatures will be checked against the signature we have on file when the voter registered to vote, And all three judges have to agree that, or all three judges, they wouldn't be kicked out unless all three judges agreed that, no, that doesn't appear to be the signature that we have on file. Then follow-up would be required with the voter if it's thought that that's not the signature of the voter. Yeah, I know people's signatures do change, but they actually don't change that much. You can usually tell. But if you can't tell, if it's completely different, you know, the voter would be called in. Not exactly sure what we're supposed to do at that point, but there's constant information coming to us from the State Board of Elections. Then we also got, so that'll cover those masks. That'll cover the cost of those masks. And
I was worried about it.
we actually went and got wipes from Walmart this morning because we heard that they were in stock, because they're not always in stock. But it'll cover a lot of stuff. And then we also have another grant that is for the postage. So our fiscal year 21 postage grant award was $14,040. So that's going to cover postage for the vote by mail ballot applications that have to go out, and that will also cover postage for the additional amount of vote by mail ballots that we'll be sending, with the exception of 8% of the vote by mail ballots, because they figured out from 2016 across the state of Illinois, the average of voting by mail was 8%. So we'll be responsible still for 8% of anything. So voting by mail would be obviously the increased postage, the envelope kits, because it takes quite a few envelopes to send out, you know, ballot and get it sent back in. All cleaning supplies, the different election judges, if we have to have any software changes in our system to get it handled. Like I said, we're not going to be doing that. We're hiring our vendor to send out the vote by mail applications, and that will be covered, you know, with the grant. Whatever is not covered, my elections.
Does the voter pay for the return postage?
Voter does pay for the return postage, yeah.
Now, Barb, did you have a question?
And is there a system of some sort for the voter to know that you all received their vote?
It'll be call in or email us to find out. Anybody can call in or email us to find out.
What was the question, Barb? I couldn't hear the
I
question.
just wanted to know if there was some kind of system where the voter knows that they received their vote.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes, you
Yeah.
know, the mail does screw up.
Yeah, no, that's a good question.
And how much time will judges spend doing their job here?
Well, I'm not real sure about that yet, because we don't know whether they have to be in the office the entire time, or if it can be done like every other day. Just not exactly sure about that, but with $49,000, that should cover that cost completely.
Okay. And how soon before the election will they be here?
August 1st is when the applications go out. I'll just give you the whole timeline. August 1st is when the vote by mail applications have to be sent out by. Early voting or vote by mail, all voting begins September, is it 24th? So it will be right around September 24th.
But do you have to wait to count votes until election day, or?
To count, yes, but I mean, they can be processed into the machine.
Okay.
But of
just-
course,
And then
yeah.
okay, and retrieve, and then I assume you have to wait so many days to allow for mailing after election day?
Yeah, I mean,
Always
at
have.
7 PM on election night, you know, those machines are, ended, you know, you put an enter card through and those votes are tallied. But, and this has been a law for several years, up to, I think it's 14 days after the election. If they are postmarked by midnight on election day, those votes will still be counted that come in the mail.
So there's a good chance that you might not even know election results.
Yeah, that's a real good chance.
I mean, but you'll be able to know how many you have outstanding.
Yes, we'll know how many we have outstanding. People have wanted us to like guess how many some counties are guessing up to maybe 50% of their voters might vote by mail. I don't think that will be the case. I think our last presidential election, 2016, I think we had around 1,000 vote by mails. That didn't include, I'm not 100% sure about this, but that didn't include people that could also vote in the office, voting early. That was strictly by mail. So we're good at it. We can handle it. I'm not worried about that part. I'm worried. She's worried. She's more worried than me because she's going to be
You won't be here.
I might be here to help, but she'll be in charge. But the coolest part, Kevin, that I wanted to tell you about is that Anheuser-Busch has given hand sanitizer to, and I don't know if this is to the whole country or if it's just to Illinois, but in Illinois alone, in Iroquois County alone, we'll be receiving 370 8-ounce bottles of hand sanitizer. The number is 370 because we have 37 precincts, and so that'll be 10 8-ounce bottles per precinct, plus 1 gallon with a pump to refill those bottles if needed per precinct. So
No cakes.
pardon? So,
We'll get the bill later, I'm sure.
well,
No, I'm just kidding.
just drink lots of Budweiser.
I don't drink Budweiser. I don't drink Budweiser.
I thought you said, you were gonna say they were giving free beer to all the.
Yeah, for change, but no, I drink free beer.
That would be funner.
I can become an election judge for giving out free beer.
I agree.
Talk us into it, huh?
That'd be a lot funner. But I think that's extremely generous.
Yeah.
What else can I tell you about that? Yeah,
So, when the vote by mail ballots come in, you will, the first thing you'll do is check the signatures,
yes.
and then do they have to be set aside then and not counted until the polls close on election day?
Well, if the signatures do match, the ballot is in the secrecy envelope. So the ballots that are in the secrecy envelope are separated from the certification envelope, obviously, so that you don't know.
Okay, yeah.
And then those ballots can be, what we call processed, which just means put into the machine, which Roger, you did that with us one year, didn't you?
Right,
That-
yeah.
That one year when we had to wait,
Mhm.
that all changed since then. So they can be processed, but nothing is counted until, the number of ballots that are in that box is counted because
Yeah.
there's a counter on there, but no votes are counted until 7 p.m. on election night.
Okay,
And that's when you put through, it's a piece of paper, it's called an ender card,
yeah,
and that stops everything, and that's when all the votes are tabulated
okay.
and all the reports are generated.
So it's a little bit more involved.
It's more involved, it is, for sure. And I think that having the 3 election judges, rather, our office always took care of it before. We would be the ones that checked the signatures, and but having 3 independent election judges, it'd be 2 of one party and 1 of another party, is an additional layer of safety or
So they will come in on certain days to check the
check the
Signatures.
signatures, yeah. And if we get tons of them every day, we might have them in the office every day. It just depends. It's all new to us too. Wish it would have been an easier election when
Yeah,
COVID hit,
you've
but
got your whole poll sheet to go through, whereas this,
yeah,
polls, you've just got your
That's-
precinct to go through.
that's absolutely right.
Yeah,
So,
So once you say it's put in the machine and it's processed, I can't vote again.
we discourage
Is that
it.
what it does? No, is that what it does? Verify that you?
When your ballot, if you vote by mail, and when your ballot comes back in, and I'm just gonna use Diane as an example, because she does most of them, she will go in and she marks in our system, that Kevin's ballot has been returned.
Okay.
So if we got another ballot, that came
Yeah,
with
so
your name
what
on
I'm
it.
trying to say is I
We-
could send money
and
by
we went
mail,
to
now I can
process
go to
it.
the polling place.
Diane would say, no,
I'm gonna
that
try it, see what
Kevin
happens.
has already, no, we've already, there's a problem here, because we already got a ballot back from
Okay.
Kevin.
Sorry.
So,
I'm just curious, so once it's in there,
I
once you're in
do
the
think
system.
probably, I mean, everybody, a lot of discussion on Facebook, and for a while there, I would try to explain and help people understand that there are things in, there are steps in process, processes in place, to make sure that voter fraud doesn't happen. But, I mean, there's never been a perfect voter system, and there never will be.
No,
Luckily, in Iroquois County, we don't have to worry about
we're
that
all
too
pretty
much.
honest.
And honestly, voter fraud is a lot less rampant than what you wanna believe. I can't spit out the numbers right now, but there's only been, I don't know, I can't think of what the number is, but it's not very many cases, of voter fraud that have been, discovered in,
Outside of Chicago.
Yeah.
um,
So Lisa, when they vote by mail and you check them off in the system, when you send the voter registration goes to the precincts, are those already marked off? in that book?
if it's been after we send those lists to the precinct, then we would have to call the polling place to let them know,
Okay,
or send an updated list. I'm not sure exactly what we'll do.
so the precinct books go out, what, the day before?
Yes.
So anyone would be up to date then, when they go out that day, and,
Yeah, sometimes we just, if they come in, we just.
because we don't have the capability of, you don't connect, we're not online with.
We don't have,
precincts.
the laptops. So it's gonna be a lot of work, it's gonna be, additional money, but I don't think that it's gonna make me go over budget, which I was very worried about at first. And we'll handle it.
Thank you, Lisa.
Oh,
More?
just one other thing, I just wanted to also say that today we're going live with, Avid, which is our new recording program. Same company, just a different program, very updated program. The girls have been training for the last couple of weeks, and, how's it going? That's it.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. Kurt?
I think this is one that,
We've already, just got through our first, tax collection date of July 1st. Last I checked, we've probably collected over half the taxes already, which, I know the county had passed that ordinance about, giving people 2 months free, and no penalties. State had passed it too. A lot of people did not even know that it existed out there, so they just paid their taxes. We've had a lot more payments done through the banks, a lot more through the mail than people came in here. I had a lot of people call and kept saying, well, is the building even open? And I'm like, we've been here for 3 weeks, so apparently nobody listens to the radio or reads the papers, apparently. But other than that, we'll have a tax distribution before the end of the month of July, and like I said, I think everything's going very smooth, so. Also, hanging on the bulletin board outside the county boardroom is our tax person, Joseph E. Meyer, is gonna have a property tax sale. It's all done through mail. I've got some flyers in my office, but there's a web address for you to get online and look. And I think it's October 2nd, is that sound right? Is when the last day they'll accept proposals. Like I said, they're gonna do it all through mail rather than, I guess, before they used to maybe come in here and do it live, but he said that since it's so small, they'll just do it that way. That's the way they do it with a lot of their counties. So if anybody inquires, I've got some flyers in my office, and there's one hanging outside and on the window, some on the doors of the building as well, so.
Thank you, Kurt. Questions for Kurt? Okay, Bob, will you give us all your reports, please?
For tax, obviously, we're deep into 2020 assessment. Assessor changes are pretty much wrapped up. We're starting to abstract on the assessor level. Because of the pandemic, the state has given us a little more freedom on exemptions as far as making it easier for people to apply. And we could have, by board resolution, waived reapplying for certain exemptions just because, but we felt with the number of people who, applied, we didn't think it was necessary to do that, so we didn't waive that. I chose not to do that. We've had people have been getting their exemptions in like pretty much normal, so we didn't feel it was necessary to automatically renew people for certain exemptions. So we just didn't, we had the option of doing it either way, we chose not to. And then, also on the assessment side, I have implemented the new land use map off the GIS system and incorporated it into DevNet. So all farmland assessments will not dramatically change, but it'll be a little bit different. So we're going to do a mailing when we do our notices in the fall. We're going to do a mailing to all the farm owners who own land with their soil sheets included, so they get an idea of what to change, what they can compare, and then they can obviously say, well, the land use map determines what the land is, whether it's cropland, home site size, other farmland, or permanent pasture. And the land use map was developed basically by visually looking at the aerials and making that determination. Well, it's, there could be some error in just some crop ground looks like pasture, on an aerial. You just don't know. So farmers will have an opportunity to look at the land use map on the GIS at home and look at the soils and make sure we got the best we can to get them right. So that funding for that mailing, that bigger postage bill, will take out of the GIS fund, because that's basically, the land use map is a GIS developed system product. So we can use the GIS funds to pay for that mailing, the additional mailing, and we do the mailing in the fall when we send out our normal publications. And that's basically where we're at on tax. So any questions on that?
Okay.
A bunch of paper for zoning. Considering it's been, I'm pleasantly surprised with building activity. I mean, it's not through the roof, but it's better than I thought it would be. Better than last year at this time. I don't really have anything, we haven't had any zoning board requests until this last 2 weeks. So the ZBA will be in session in the end of July. We'll have 2 hearings. One will be conditional use. Someone wants to have an event venue on their personal property that's zoned A2. So they have to get conditional use to run a business out of there. And the other one is a straight rezoning. A gentleman owns a farm ground that's zoned A1, but he doesn't have enough acreage, but he wants to build a house. And so he's going to request a rezoning for that. Okay. So we'll have those 2 in the August zoning committee meeting.
I noticed there's a mileage and travel of $1,700. So there's been a lot of traveling around.
Yeah, the inspections are, me and Jeff, like I told you in the past, really got aggressive with making sure people are calling for their inspections to get done. So I basically told Jeff until these contractors figure it out that we're paying attention, that he's going to drive around and hawk them, and if they're farther along than he thinks they should be, he'll stop and roust them and talk to them and say you need to get called in for the inspections. So now Parks Livestock just applied for 3 permits for their 3 of the hog facilities that were approved by the Department of Ag a few months ago. They finally got the permits this last week. I'll issue the permits probably later on this week. But for those, there's 3 out there that they've got that they're going to build in the next. They have 4 approved, right? Didn't they? Or anyway, just 3 total. 3 total. I think they're going to do 2 this year, then 1 next year. One of the line marks doesn't want to build until next year. But they're getting all the permits now. And I've not heard that, I don't think the solar facility has started construction yet. They have their permit, but I don't think they've started because of the wet weather we had a month ago. So obviously, now it's dried up, I would imagine they'll be getting going on that pretty soon. So other than that, it's pretty much status quo.
How is the project for that brewery, microbrewery coming along?
I haven't heard anything more as far as inspections. I don't get it, I haven't seen an inspection come through for a while. I don't know where their status is, what they're doing. I don't know if they're waiting on the state or if they're licensing or anything like that. I have no idea. So, but they haven't called for an inspection on the conversion for quite a while. And that's a complete list for year to date for building permits from January to current.
Okay.
Elevators are still building Big Bends, so that's still going on. And I think Hopper building 2 new bins. Hooper's building 2 new bins. Stockland's doing another bin.
Yeah.
A couple farmers are actually doing big grain handling complexes on their farms from personal use. So that's still active. So I guess my question to you guys is, down the road, these farmers keep building these $1 million grain handling complexes on an 80-acre farm tract, and it's considered an ag permit with no fee, so no inspections. So that's the way the ordinance reads now. So it's up to, if you guys think you need to change that in some of these fancy pole buildings with shops in them and offices and living quarters. So, I mean, see what you want to do. I'm just throwing that out there. They don't have any inspections or nothing done on them, and then there's no fee for, $500,000 shop or $1 million grain complex, because it's considered ag.
Anything anyone's run across that has a question about?
But the conditional use is outside of Milford, and the rezoning is up in Elks Grove Township. Just to give you an idea where they're located at.
Okay. Okay, if there's no questions for Bob, we'll move on. Lisa, approval of list of election judges.
This is the first step in the commissioning of election judges for their term. It's a 2-year term that covers 3 elections. So I just brought, instead of making copies of all these, do you want to look at the
I don't need to look at
list? Anybody need, it just needs to be approved by the county board. Then the next step will be, I have a court date in July, so they get commissioned by the court. And do they come back to the county board after that? No. So they get commissioned by the court, and then we have election judge training, and following the training, there'll be another court date, and then that'll be the final commission by the court that they've been trained, and then we would, any additional judges that have been added or any that have been subtracted or taken off at that time. So it takes 2 court dates and county board approval for the lists for election titles.
Is there a motion to approve the list of election judges?
What's the total? How many total?
Do you know how many we have?
I didn't count them.
If you have, if we use 5 election judges in every precinct, that's 185 judges, but we have,
Plus the ones we're gonna use in here too. Mailing,
that would probably be, we'll probably use,
so it doesn't matter because we got a grant for that, so it doesn't matter.
right, but those have to be from the list the people that we use in the office have to be from either staff or from the list of election judges that are commissioned.
That's all right.
Not sure if I answered that, right?
Yeah, close enough.
Okay.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the list of election judges? Jim, second.
I'll second.
Kevin? Any
Gotta
dis-
gotta go through the county board anyway.
Any discussion? Is a roll call necessary, Lisa?
I don't think so.
Okay, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Okay, Lisa, a resolution approving sale of property acquired through the delinquent tax program.
I have a resolution from the county's delinquent tax agent. They do it a little bit different. Joseph Meyer does it a little bit different than Ballinger's. Ballinger's used to have a resolution and the deed at the same time, and now they're separate. So this is for a parcel that they sold to the village of Donovan. So this is approving the resolution. Is that right, Rhea? Then the deed will be?
Yes, and then they don't present the deed.
They don't even
They just
present
get the
the deed.
approval of the
Okay.
resolution.
So now I'll just say there's a resolution instead of a resolution and deed.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the resolution approving the sale of property acquired through the delinquent tax program?
So made.
Leanne, second? Bernie? Okay, any discussion? Any questions? If not, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Is there any old business? Any new business? John, would you want to comment on the county board meeting? We're all the same people, but,
I don't think there's any need to repeat it.
okay, it'll just, as it stands, it'll probably be at 8 o'clock next Tuesday, right, at the county highway
As
department.
I said before, nobody has said that they're not in favor of meeting at 8 o'clock, so it looks like that's what it's gonna be. We'll confirm it on Friday when the agenda comes out.
Okay. Anything
I'll
else?
check with the other committees tomorrow and Thursday, and make sure we give everybody a chance to weigh in on it.
Okay. Okay, anything else? No new business, so is there a motion to adjourn? So moved. Kevin, second. Ernie? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, no?
You have much more paper than.
Give me something to read.
You never heard of the freedom by email?